Translator, Henyi. Editor, Henyi. Were they already too late? Ling Han's gaze swept slowly across the surroundings like a sword scanning the battlefield. There were already more than 100 cultivators gathered here. Moreover, those were only the ones standing outside the pavilion. As for how many were already within its halls, that was impossible to tell. Ling Han reached out and pulled one man aside, cupping his fists slightly as he asked, "Old chap, may I ask, what exactly is happening here?" Fortune appeared to favor him, for the man he had stopped clearly enjoyed displaying his knowledge. His eyes brightened immediately, and he began speaking without pause, his words pouring forth like a river in flood. This place was a library, a hidden treasury where countless secret techniques were preserved. Within it were martial arts techniques, as well as cultivation methods. Each and every one of these secret techniques had been sealed inside a sphere of light that floated freely in midair, drifting and fluttering about. If one wished to obtain them, one would have to strike out and intercept them. After seizing the sphere, it had to be shaken until the sphere of light shattered. Only then would the secret technique within become the property of the one who captured it. Everyone could only enter once, and the maximum time allowed was 1 day. Once someone successfully obtained a secret technique, whether the time limit had expired or not, they would immediately be transported out. Ling Han was startled and said, "Isn't there a Shattering Void tier elite present here? Why not simply collect the entire library directly? Wouldn't that be far simpler? How wonderful it would be if he could claim the whole library in one sweep. In that case, every secret technique here would belong to him." The man burst into loud laughter and said, "Youngsters, you're lucky you asked me. If you asked someone else, they definitely wouldn't know." He lowered his voice afterward, putting on a mysterious expression as he continued, "Just so you know, this pavilion itself is actually a grand array. If the array senses an attack, it will immediately destroy every secret technique stored inside." Realization dawned on Ling Han at once. If someone attempted to seize the library by force, they would end up obtaining nothing at all. Thus, everyone had no choice but to follow the rules of the game. It wasn't that Shattering Void tier elites couldn't destroy the array. Rather, the array held the secret techniques themselves as hostages. Even the mighty experts of the Shattering Void tier had no way around it. "Thank you." Ling Han nodded to the man before turning toward Zhu Xuan and the others. "Let us go inside and try our luck as well." They pushed their way through the dense crowd and entered the library. Yee! The moment they stepped inside, astonishment appeared clearly on their faces. This place resembled a vast, starry firmament. In the pitch-black darkness, countless specks of light danced and drifted about, just like meteors streaking through an endless night sky. Looking carefully, it was exactly as the man outside had described. Every secret technique was wrapped inside a glowing sphere, suspended in the air throughout the space. Of course, this was not truly a starry sky. Though it appeared immense at first glance, the actual space measured only about 1 acre in area, and its height was roughly 150 meters. For cultivators, such a space was nothing more than a simple leap. They could land wherever they wished. However, just as Ling Han prepared to leap high into the air, he suddenly felt a powerful force pressing down upon him. The moment he tried to move, his body bounced slightly, yet his speed was severely suppressed by this invisible pressure, air. This greatly increased the difficulty of capturing those light spheres. Here, everyone had to obey the rules. Of course, one could attempt to resist or ignore them, but judging from the formidable strength of the array, even heaven-tier elites would probably have no choice but to behave obediently. Perhaps Shattering Void tier experts could break free of such restraints. But the price would be the destruction of all the secret techniques here. Ling Han had no idea who had designed this library, but it was truly a cunning arrangement. The chances that this place had been created by Fatima were actually quite high. After all, that fellow possessed an extraordinary fondness for mischief. Within this space, everyone could only move at the pace of an ordinary person, and their jumping height was extremely limited. Thus, with the sky filled with countless drifting light spheres, it seemed there was no practical way to capture them. However, as the spheres moved randomly through the air, There were occasional moments when they would descend and touch the ground. At those times, they could still be seized. Naturally, this depended heavily on luck. This place was quite vast, after all. If one didn't watch carefully in advance, by the time a sphere descended, it would already be too late to catch it. Ling Han lifted his gaze toward the spheres floating above. Because their movements were too swift and their numbers too great, it was difficult to clearly discern what was written inside them. Only occasionally could he glimpse a few scattered words. For example, Sunflower Demon, Cultivation Execution, and other incomplete names. These were likely the names of the secret techniques contained within. Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth and began carefully capturing the information displayed inside those light spheres. Found it! Nearly an hour later, Ling Han finally locked onto a particular sphere. The name inside it was Earth Overturning Seal. Even with the Eye of Truth, locating it had been extremely difficult. He suspected that other people couldn't even distinguish what was inside the spheres at all. Whenever a sphere passed nearby, they simply lunged out to grab it. As for whether they actually caught what they wanted, that was another matter entirely. At this moment, the sphere containing the Earth Overturning Seal was drifting swiftly through the air. Ling Han attempted to use the blood-sucking origin gold, but the sphere's speed was simply too fast. He could not catch it. No, there had to be another way. Ling Han stared intently, restraining himself from making any impulsive moves. If he accidentally grabbed another sphere, he would immediately be expelled from the library. "Yeah! You caught one?" Hu Niu's delighted voice rang out. Her luck was astonishingly good. One of the light spheres had drifted straight down toward her body as if walking into a trap. Naturally, the little girl showed no hesitation and grabbed it immediately. In the next instant, she was transported out of the library. Ling Han withdrew his gaze and once more fixed his attention on the sphere containing the Earth Overturning Seal. After observing it for less than half a day, he finally discovered something. The movements of the light spheres actually followed a certain pattern. However, the variations within that pattern were incredibly complex. Calculating them would naturally be extremely difficult. The next landing point should be there. Ling Han immediately moved according to his calculations, sprinting toward that location. But before he could reach it, someone suddenly stepped forward and blocked his path. "Make way." As Ling Han spoke, half of his body twisted slightly as he slipped past the other person's side. After all, they were strangers. Charging forward recklessly might easily provoke a fierce counterattack. Shua! His figure flashed past. Ahead of him, a light sphere was descending rapidly through the air, less than 3 meters away. Under normal circumstances, such a distance would require only a split second to cover. But now, Ling Han needed 3 steps just to reach it. "Humph! How dare you!" The man behind him instantly flew into a rage. He drew his saber and slashed toward Ling Han. "Shoo!" The saber ray transformed into a spiraling drill that shot forward with terrifying speed. Ling Han had merely brushed past him. He had even spoken beforehand and hadn't touched him at all. And yet this man intended to kill him? Ling Han didn't bother to block the attack. That would only waste precious time. Instead, he allowed his body to take the blow directly. He didn't even have the spare energy to circulate the particles within his body to minimize the damage. The saber ray struck his body. A violent shock rippled through his flesh as blood immediately stained his back. Fortunately, the wound was minor. The body of Diamond automatically repaired the injury. Ling Han stretched out his hand toward the rapidly descending light sphere, but the sphere brushed past his fingertips. It struck the ground lightly, rebounded, and shot back toward the sky. Ling Han cursed silently in his heart. If that man hadn't slashed him just now, he would have caught it without fail. The difference had been no more than a hair's breadth. Damn him! Hey, youngster, take this as a lesson. Next time, don't be so reckless. The man who had slashed him spoke smugly from behind, his voice full of delight. Earlier, he had attacked partly because he was annoyed. But the real reason was that when he saw the light sphere descending toward the place Ling Han was rushing to, envy surged in his heart. If I can't get it, why should I let you have it? A mere spiritual infant tier junior, what was there to fear? He himself stood at the peak of the deity transformation tier. and his battle prowess had surpassed 9 battle stars. How could such a small junior possibly dare to retaliate against him? Linghan truly felt the urge to kill someone. But when his gaze swept once more across the countless light spheres drifting through the sky, he forcibly suppressed that murderous impulse. He had no choice but to start over. He needed to relocate the sphere containing the Earth overturning seal, lock onto its movements again, and calculate where and when it would descend next. There was only one day available. And judging from the pattern he had observed earlier, he would probably have only one final chance left. Translator, Henyi. Editor, Henyi. When that deity transformation tier cultivator caught sight of Linghan, the corners of his lips curled into an uncontrollable smirk. In his eyes, this outcome was only natural. How could a mere spiritual infant tier practitioner dare to challenge someone of his stature? Heng! It seems you know what's good for you. Beside that deity transformation tier expert stood another junior disciple. He looked at Linghan with utter contempt. Yet deep within the depths of his eyes flickered a trace of profound envy. Indeed, the two of them were nearly the same age. Strictly speaking, he was even 5 to 6 years older, yet he himself had only just stepped into the flower blossom tier, while Linghan had already reached the spiritual infant tier. That meant an entire cultivation realm separated them. Calculating it carefully, how much older was he than Linghan? At the very least, 10 years. He himself was merely a little over 20 years of age and had cultivated for no more than slightly over a decade, yet the difference between them was 10 years. What kind of concept was this? The disparity in their talents was as vast as heaven and earth. Linghan cast a sweeping glance over them, silently engraving the appearances of the two men into his mind. I have not even revealed my true prowess, yet you people truly think I am a weakling? Stop staring. Look again and I'll gouge out your eyeballs. The junior barked viciously, his expression twisted with ferocity. His name was Zhou Yucheng. This time, he had ventured out together with his third elder, Zhou Deiyuan. Young and gifted, he was the most talented disciple among 3 generations of the Zhao clan. At only 24 years old, he had already broken through to the flower blossom tier. In the future, stepping into the deity transformation tier was extremely likely. The Zhou clan itself was a clan that stood upon the deity transformation tier level, possessing 4 experts of that realm. Among them, third elder Zhou Deiyuan was the strongest, having cultivated all the way to the very peak of the deity transformation tier. Within the Zhou clan, Zhou Yucheng was fully deserving of the title of number 1 genius. In the lands within a 1,000-mile radius, he was likewise regarded as a figure not to be underestimated. There were very few geniuses capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with him. However, if he were placed within the middle state, he could only be called a genius. There remained an enormous gap between him and the first-rate geniuses or the true super geniuses. For instance, he had been unable to gain direct admission into the Restore Heaven Academy. Thus, after failing the admission examination of the Restore Heaven Academy, he developed an excessive hatred toward those whose talent surpassed his own. Whenever he encountered such individuals, he wished to destroy them utterly, nurturing a kind of twisted obsession. Linghan withdrew his gaze, and his attention returned once more to the sphere of light. Earth overturning seal. A mystical power. Compared to this, the endless barking of such insignificant nobodies was nothing more than shallow noise. In the future, if necessary, he could simply raise his palm and slap such a fellow to death. But if he were to lose a mystical power because of such trivial nonsense, that would be a catastrophic loss, one he absolutely could not afford. Zhou Yucheng could not help but feel secretly pleased with himself. So what if you are a genius? Could you possibly defeat someone in the deity transformation tier? Zhou Deiyuan also no longer paid any attention to Linghan. His entire focus was now directed toward capturing one of the light spheres. If he could obtain a first-rate cultivation technique, perhaps he might seize the opportunity to take that crucial step and break through into the heaven tier. That would truly be magnificent. Meanwhile, Zhu Xuan-Er and Rabbit were also reaping rewards. After each of them succeeded in obtaining a light sphere, they were both instantly transported outside. The allotted time of 1 day and 1 night was nearly exhausted, and the sphere of light that Ling Han had been watching so intently all this time once again descended slowly from the heavens. Ling Han had long since dashed forward, stretching out his hand to seize it in one swift motion. But at that very instant, another hand reached out as well, grasping toward the same sphere of light. That person's luck was truly astonishing. Naturally, it was not because he had calculated the descending trajectory of the light sphere. Rather, he had originally been standing right there, and by sheer coincidence, the sphere of light happened to fall directly toward him, as if it had willingly thrown itself into his embrace. And that person did not hesitate either. His hand shot out like lightning, grasping toward it, and he touched the light sphere at almost exactly the same moment as Ling Han. It was Xuanyuan Ziguang! Ling Han felt a faint flicker of surprise. He had long known that this man belonged to that rare category of people blessed with extraordinary fortune, the sort who would fall off a cliff, yet survive and discover the ancient inheritance of some predecessor. And now this so-called lucky attribute had manifested once again as the earth-overturning seal practically hurled itself into his arms, making Ling Han feel incomparably envious. Some people truly are born with lives favored by fortune. Yet Ling Han himself was even more confident, because what he relied upon was real strength. True strength would always remain, and it would only continue to grow stronger. As for luck, there would inevitably come a day when it was exhausted, or a moment when it ceased to function. Moreover, having too much good fortune and progressing too smoothly would not benefit one's advancement along the martial path. Ling Han! Xuanyuan Ziguang also noticed Ling Han and could not restrain the furious roar bursting from his throat. He harbored deep hatred toward Ling Han. Not only had Ling Han defeated him again and again, dealing heavy blows to his confidence, Ling Han had even taken away the woman he admired. And now, this man still intended to fight him over a secret technique. Divine radiance surged throughout his entire body, making him appear like a heavenly deity descending upon the mortal world, awe-inspiring beyond measure. That radiance came from the armor he wore. Upon it were several hundred intricate patterns, each one blazing with light, casting forth thousands of rays as they slashed violently toward Ling Han. It was a spirit tool that was possibly of level 8. Xuanyuan Ziguang's luck was truly powerful enough to defy the will of the heavens. He had absolutely not possessed this treasure before. He had merely gone out on an adventure and somehow picked up a spirit tool, the bell of heaven and earth's fate. Ling Han showed no fear. His body itself began to emit light like a divine treasure. You rely on a spirit tool to enhance your strength, yet I myself am already this powerful. Tell me, who is truly more formidable? Shua, shua, shua. The beams emitted by the treasured tool continuously slashed onto Ling Han's body, slicing through his clothes and striking his flesh. Yet every inch of his skin and muscle moved as though they possessed their own will. The spirit tool's attacks were rendered completely ineffective. Pang! Ling Han threw out a single punch. How could Xuanyuan Ziguang possibly withstand it? Instinctively, he leapt backward, retreating 7 steps in succession. His face flushed bright red before turning pale as he gasped desperately for breath, nearly losing consciousness on the spot. His expression became extremely ugly. In the past, he had been no match for Ling Han, and even now he was still no match. Even with the aid of a spirit tool, why was the gap between them becoming increasingly wider? He was someone blessed with the fortune of heaven and earth. Ling Han smiled faintly. At last he had secured that sphere of light. Pah! The sphere shattered into pieces, and the writings upon it vanished instantly as its glow dimmed. Within it lay a green-colored bead. The inheritance of mystical powers was always transmitted without words. Earth-overturning seal, a mystical power technique. Xuanyuan Ziguang roared, pointing his right hand toward Ling Han. Return that mystical power to me. In an instant, nearly all gazes, about 2/3 of them, locked onto Ling Han simultaneously, and every single one of them burned with greed. Mystical power. Although no one had ever ranked their grades, legend said that a mystical power surpassed even heaven-grade cultivation techniques. They were secret arts once practiced by the gods themselves, later lost within the mortal realm. Who would not covet such a thing? Ling Han's figure flickered, and he had already exited the library. Having obtained the secret technique, he was transported outside. Ling Han! Hu Nu and the others immediately came forward to greet him. Ling Han nodded and said, "Prepare to run." Running away again? Hu Nu grinned broadly, clapping her tiny hands together. So fun! Let's see who can run the fastest. Hey, where do you think you're running to? A group of people rushed out of the library in pursuit. They had not been transported out. Rather, they exited by their own effort, and so they were naturally a little slower. Zhou Deyuan fixed his gaze on Ling Han and spoke coldly. "Hand over the mystical power, and I will spare your life." Ling Han could no longer suppress the murderous aura rising within him. Earlier, he had prioritized the earth-overturning seal, and thus had not bothered to settle accounts with this man. Yet now, the fellow had actually delivered himself to the door. Ling Han replied calmly, "Oh? And why should I?" Zhou Deyuan's arrogance was obvious. He clasped his hands behind his back in a leisurely manner, his posture relaxed and full of pride as he said slowly, "Your intelligence truly leaves much to be desired. No matter what you do, it is impossible for you to keep this mystical power. The only choice you possess is whether you wish to lose your life as well."